Hey class, this week we're going to great six Western by the director John Ford, stars John Wayne, has Natalie Wood. And the reason I'm having you watch it is it has to do with Texas, number one, and number two, it has to do with the clash of civilizations as Anglos moved into the western part of Texas, into the Comanche. Very, very violent period in Texas history, a war that really goes on from the 1830s until the 1870s in that part of the state. This this movie, based on a book, which in turn is based on a true story, and the story is that of Cynthia Ann Parker. Cynthia Ann Parker was a young Anglo woman who was kidnapped with some other members of her family in 1836 by the Comanche. She lived with the Comanche for until 1860. She ultimately married, although not in the sense of marrying in a church, but in the Comanche sense, a Comanche chief named Pettinacona, and had 3 children by him. And in fact, her son, Quanah Parker, is often considered the last Comanche chief. So Cynthia Ann was kidnapped and returned to the Anglo world in 1860, and we'll be talking about this a lot more over the course of the semester. But just to let you know that the germ of this story, it comes from Texas history. And in real life, her uncle did search for her in the same way that John Wayne searched for the Natalie Wood character, Debbie, in The Searchers. So it's a movie that's very much about Texas. Now we're jumping ahead a little bit because the events of this movie take place after the Civil War, but it doesn't really matter that we're jumping ahead. It's really about the Comanche versus Anglos. And it's also filmed in Monument Valley, Utah, not Texas. It's quite gorgeous, the film. It's an amazingly beautiful film. It's also a very brave performance by John Wayne, because he basically plays a psychopathic racist. He's usually the hero. You're not sure whether you want to root for John Wayne or root against him. Very, very complex portrayal by him, and he does a fantastic job. He's very, very scary in this movie. And now the other element of the movie, which I like very much, is it has very, very strong Mexican characters. Up until the 50s, mostly Mexican Americans, Tejanos, Indians were portrayed in the most racist, simplistic kind of light. But as you'll see when you watch this movie, especially the Mexican American characters, especially the man that helps John Wayne initially reconnect with his niece Debbie, is a guy named Ernesto Moreno, who's a very, very famous Spanish actor. And he's presented with great dignity, which we would take for granted today, but in the 1950s, this was something new. So that's one of the things I like about it. It has a Mexican-American voice. There's a lot of Spanish in this movie, you might notice, especially if you speak Spanish, which I think is interesting. John Wayne actually married a woman from Mexico, one of his many wives. So the one aspect of Texas that the movie does not have, though, which of course is very prevalent, is African Americans. The reason for this is that in the area of Texas where this movie takes place, you didn't grow cotton. There wasn't enough water to grow cotton. So there was almost no cotton cultivation. So you wouldn't have had very many enslaved in this region whatsoever. The enslaved that were forced against their will into Texas mostly lived in the eastern part of the state, where there was abundant rainfall, which allowed for the growth of cotton. So that's one of the historical reasons that you don't have African Americans in this movie. Now, one of the aspects of the movie that I want you to watch out for is the relationship between the indigenous people, the Comanche in this case, and the Anglo world, and the presentation of them. John Wayne, as I said before, you don't really know what his story is. He seems kind of scary when he shows up. He seems to have wanted posters on him. He are out for him. He's someone that seems to be subject to arrest. So his background is very shady, unlike his brother, and this will make a lot more sense when you watch the movie. But the point that I want you to watch out for is that John Wayne is deeply, deeply racist to the Comanche. Also, his young quote unquote nephew Marty, a person that John Wayne had saved as a young baby. Marty is 1/8 Cherokee, and he's become fully integrated into the Anglo world. So watch the racism in their relationship. But the other thing about John Wayne is that he's taken the trouble to understand the Comanche. As you watch the movie, note that he speaks the language, he understands the customs of the Comanche, he understands the way they think, and he also understands their religious rites, their spiritual world. So on one hand, John Wayne deeply, deeply racist toward the Comanche. On the other hand, that he's taken the trouble to understand the Comanche as well. Now, the portrayal of the Comanche in this movie compared to what had come before is more three-dimensional. I'm not sure if it would fly in 2022, but it is more three-dimensional and compared to the 1950s. And there's in particular, you'll see as you watch the movie, there's a young Indian woman that's given to Marty, John Wayne's so-called nephew, and she's treated as a comic figure. She's humiliated, and kind of a disturbing scene. But if you continue to watch the movie and see what her fate is, you can kind of see John Ford is kind of setting the audience up for a bit of a shock, and also to kind of question the power of the U.S., especially the U.S. cavalry in the West, and the actions of the U.S. cavalry. So this isn't a movie where all the Anglos are good guys and all the Comanche are bad guys in any shape, sense, or form of the word. It's a movie that kind of mixes things up, and especially the John Wayne character. Very complex figure. Basically, the question is, does John Wayne want to save his niece, or does he want to kill her? Because she has become Comanche, and basically she has become the wife of a Comanche chief. And so by so doing, has she become, and again, I'm doing air quotes, has she become defiled because she has become the wife of a Comanche chief? So very complex movie, especially for the 1950s. Very multi-ethnic movie with strong characters from each of, and it's like I say, it's a little bit surprising in the best sense that the main character, Ethan, is someone, like I say, who basically plays a psychotic racist. You have very, very strong Mexican-American figures in the movie, a lot of Spanish spoken, treated with great respect for the most part. And the Comanche are treated as human beings as well. And the central question of the movie is, does John Wayne want to save his niece that has become, that is kidnapped by the Comanche, or does he want to kill her? Because she's become defiled, because she's become part of the Comanche world. And what gives this, I think, movie especially powerful resonance is, and you'll learn this over the course of the semester, that it's based on a true story. So that's my little discussion of The Searchers. I hope you enjoy it. Very powerful movie, very powerful performances, and like I said at the top, it is considered one of the great American movies ever filmed.